Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganmouth, Motor City Madmouth. Boy, do we have a loaded show tonight. Before I go ahead and get to the topics, we're going to welcome Candy Ebling to the big show.
Thanks, Scott. It's great to be here.
Glad to have you. George Eichhorn.
Also great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Last but not least, JV Ellis, Mr. Sideline Sports.
They say it's great to be here, so I'm going to say it's wonderful to be here.
Great
It's
stuff.
going to be different.
Well, we try to keep it real here on the network. All right, so I don't think I've ever let off with a women's basketball coach, but I have good reason for doing it this time. The title of the show, by the way, is UConn women's basketball coach. Strong words on amateurism. You wonder who that person is? That is Gino Auriemma on the transfer portal. He says, "How about we teach kids how to make a commitment and stick to it?" My goodness. You know what, Joe? What do you think about Auriemma talking about today's kids sticking to a commitment?
Gino makes an excellent point. The transfer portal, it's a joke. I mean, I get if your coach leaves and you want to leave, I'm all for it. If there's a family emergency, I'm all for it. Otherwise, you pick a school, you stay in the school, you play until you leave. There shouldn't be, well, I'm going to UConn this year, I'm going to go to Tennessee next year, then I'm going to go to, USC. I'm going to tour the country playing in 4 different schools in 4 different years because I choose to. That's ridiculous. And it's all because of the NIL and, the culture in which there's no consequences anymore. Do what you want. Everybody's a winner. Here's a trophy for you. Scott, you got the best sports talk show in the 8 o'clock time zone of the South Florida area. Whatever your zip code is, whatever the address is, you get that trophy. You're number one. You're not competing against anybody else. Automatically, you get a participation trophy. It's horrible. It's the culture. It needs to stop.
So let me ask you a question. What do you think about the way the millennials are handling the word commitment these days? I'm not trying to pick on that younger generation.
There is no commitment.
Exactly. That's my point.
It's pathetic. Nobody has work ethic. Work ethic is out the window. And it goes to all facets of life. It goes to things we don't want to talk about, and you can see plenty of it on X, to things we're talking about here in sports. It's in all facets. There's no commitment to anything. There's no ethics. There's no commitment, and it's pathetic.
And that's why I led off with Gino Auriemma. If there isn't a more credible individual on the planet than Gino Auriemma, who's been dealing with youngsters a long time, I don't know if there is another one. I really don't. I mean, that's just how I feel in my mind. This guy here, to me, okay, is just one of those guys who's won championships. You can compare him to John Wooden, obviously, of women's basketball. He can be compared to anything, but let's face it, he's been dealing with students for a long, long time. Joshua Bernstein's question for JBL is, how old is that hat? Oh, well, only Joshua could go ahead and ask a question like that through a computer. But all right, might as well give him this answer.
It's on its 3rd Super Bowl, about to be its 4th.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, George, you know the question? Let's hear your response.
Coach Gino, yeah, I agree. It's there's so much. The fans aren't loyal like they used to be. The players aren't loyal like they used to be. I mean, come on. And yes, the younger generation, of course, is what's in it for me now. It's the me generation and all that. I mean, even on the job market, I mean, we see that happening. The kids go into one job and they last a year, maybe 2, and then they move on to something else. I'm not trying to say everything is bad, but I'm glad Coach Gino picked up on this, because that is a very, very important topic to discuss. And I agree. I don't like the things about the moving around, the transfer portal, like you said, JB. I mean, these kids are going from one to the other and to the other and to the other, 3, 4 schools. They're not, that's not what that thing should have been set up for. And I don't think the original concept of it was that anyways. But the fact of the matter is things got to get better. They got to get better, not only in men's college sports, but women as well.
This is funny, Candy. I love this. Joshua Bernstein, Candy, I am ready for a station break. Look at this guy. He maybe wants to just hear your voice. But don't worry, Joshua. But I like the way he spelled it. It's certainly not spelled. Is that the Mexican version, Josh, or did spell check not work really right. Cetacean. I'm not sure exactly what language that comes from, but that's okay. And of course, A for blows doesn't sound like the one for A in Canada. Okay, station. There we go, Joshua. He just picked it up. Just kidding with you, pal. It's a very nice little friendly ball buster, what you guys are all too familiar with. We are all coming over from Ralph's opinion. All right, we'll leave it at that. All right, Katie, some thoughts about Coach Oriama.
We have talked about how NIL has changed collegiate sports completely. They're now coaches are now more expected to win like the NFL because you got to re-recruit all of your play. It's almost harder because now you got to re-recruit all of your players. It's not like you're setting them for a contract for years. You're going to try and re-recruit every year to keep them to see, besides recruiting outside and the youngsters, and you're recruiting all levels, whether it be their first year, second year, third year, fourth year. It's become so hard. Like George said, they're now saying the average number of careers, not jobs, careers people will have is between 5 and 7. They're saying now that I think they're about 30% of the workforce changes jobs every 12 months. Every 12 months. I mean, you think about these lifers that in these industries, like someone goes to work for one of the car manufacturers, up in Detroit. They work for, General Motors or something like that. Normally you hear these people working for long periods of time. That has gone out the window. I mean, I can tell you I've been in my career job in my industry for over 33 years. Scott, you've been in media for over 40 plus years because you talk about it. We talk about it in your book that you wrote.
Right.
Those are going by the wayside. And my question is going to be, what is society going to look like 10, 20, 30 years down the road where you don't have experience in your job? You've only worked in it for 12 months and you're going to go change jobs. Who's going to have experience? Who's going to keep building on things? There, like we said, there's no commitment. My question, I remember years ago, even marriages, they said 50% of them end in divorce. Like, the commitment is not there. People don't know how to commit. They don't know how to respect people. The morals of this country have gone out the window. And I hate to say that, and I see it more and more with the younger generation, the saying please, the saying thank you, all of that for small gestures. They don't do it. It's a me society, and it scares me. It really does.
Well,
can I just interject real quick? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of, the fact that this came from Gino Oriama, who's the women's UConn coach. I covered the men's basketball Big East tournament last year, and Coach Hurley, during multiple press conferences, was worried about people trying to poach people from his team. So I just find it odd that both UConn coaches, both men and women, I don't know. I don't think the women won the championship last year. I know the men did, obviously. But, both are really good programs, and both head coaches have brought up the fact of losing people to the transfer portal and having, players poached. It's kind of scary when you think that, this is one of the top programs in the country, and they're worried about this.
Yeah, Danny Hurley stayed there. He could have had a better job elsewhere, but he turned down the Lakers job, if I understand correctly. I'll say that Gino Oriama is unquestionably in a class by himself. But you know what? I'll say this. I think actually the transfer portal should be limited to one transfer, and that's it. Maybe a second if there's a conditional clause, but that's way too much. You know what? Say what you want about Gino Oriama. I think the greatest women's basketball of all time is Pat Summitt. Period. I'll leave it at that. Fair enough. We're going to stay on college basketball. Kentucky wins a thriller despite huge game from Cooper Flagg. Kid's only 17 years of age at 26 points, 12 rebounds, and the Wildcats 77-72 win over Duke. This is Kentucky's first win over Duke in 9 years. Flagg is the first ACC player with 50 points, 25 rebounds, and 10 assists through his first 3 career games in the last 25 years. As for Mark Pope of Kentucky, well, he's able to go ahead and get that win. So the main thing is this: Mark Pope was a great hire by the Kentucky Wildcats. Well, let's talk about Cooper. Let's talk about Mr. Flagg here. Okay, this kid is a player, and who knows how long he'll be in. But I'll tell you, what a great first few games. Candy.
He did it with like what, 1 minute and 14 seconds left. It was a really close game down the pike. He ruined a 26-point night by turning it over twice in the final minute to hand the victory to the Wildcats. This was just a really close game. Good win for Kentucky to take down number 6 on Champions Classic on Tuesday night. I haven't, I'll be honest with you, I've been following more football than basketball yet, but good for them. It was a huge win for Pope, and he's a former Kentucky player who returned to his alma mater after the departure of longtime coach John Calipari.
Okay, George.
Yeah, this kid he's got a lot of good skills, I'm telling you. 6'9", 205, he's a freshman. Cooper Flagg, that's a name to remember. That was a good game. And, you got 2 powerhouses like that. My goodness, Kentucky and Duke going at it. They're like a college basketball machine, schools like that. And they turn these kids out, as we know, one after the other, head to the NBA. But boy, oh boy, this kid's got a lot of moxie. He really does. He's averaging in 3 games, I see 19 points a game. This is going to be another great story. And again, we'll see how long he stays in the NCAA before being tempted to jump into the pros. But Cooper Flagg, yeah, I like that name. That's a good name. He looks like a good kid, and I wish him well. And obviously Duke's got a good guy there, a good guard.
Well, what I like about Cooper Flagg and Duke is at least, Duke doesn't preach the one and done. That's not to say guys don't leave early, but when you go to Duke, you're really getting a great education there. You really, really, really are.
Sure.
Dating back to Mike Krzyzewski. So it's, obviously players will leave early depending on what their value is, but still, I feel better going to Duke that they're going to develop more experienced players than I would anywhere else. Joe, what are your thoughts about Cooper Flagg? And the fact of the matter is that Mark Pope was a good hire in Kentucky, even though, as Candy alluded to, John Calipari bolted.
George, real quick, George, close your ears a second. The championship classic, they should have had UConn and got rid of Michigan State this year. There was no reason to have Michigan State. Love Tom Izzo, but the Champions Classic, have the champion, UConn. But that's besides the point. Michigan State's a little bit behind the curve on the 4 teams that were there, but they played hard. As far as Cooper Flagg, kid's got a lot of talent. That Duke team, they're going to make a run. They're at least a Sweet 16 team. It happens. You play a really good team. You can't win every time when you play a good team. And Mark Pope in Kentucky, that's a win that they wouldn't have got under Calipari. I guarantee you that. I think Pope's going to do a great job there. I don't know if Flagg's going to stay very long at Duke. I think he should. If you're going to go to a school to stay at, like you said, Scott, I'm going to stay at Duke at least 2-3 years and work towards my education because Duke's a phenomenal school. You're not going to miss out much missing going pro 1 or 2 years. If you're that good, you're only going to increase what your stock is. But great job by Kentucky pulling that victory out in the last couple of minutes. If you're going to have a Champions Classic, get the champions in there. We need UConn. And, St. John's ranked 22nd, big win over Wagner tonight. We'll get to that later, I hope.
Yeah, well, I'll give you a parting shot so you can't get to it. Fair enough. Okay, well, let me just tell you this. Have you ever been to Cameron Indoor Arena? We've never seen a game there, but we had a chance to go there too because it's an unbelievable place. Have you ever been to Rupp Arena? I did go there with covering Florida Atlantic University. It when my good friend Mike Jarvis was coaching there. Two great places. If you've ever been to those facilities, they're absolutely unbelievable. Okay, well, we'll stay in the New York City area. So yeah, Cooper Flag is definitely a person we're going to see. It'll be, but I like the odds of him staying at Duke a little bit longer than I would other players going elsewhere because everybody knows the transfer portal is making a name for itself for all the wrong reasons. That's for sure. So with that said, let's go on to a little bit of hockey, okay? But we'll talk about wins in the New York City area. I think Joshua Bernstein's going to like this one a little bit. The Winnipeg Jets actually have two in that area, okay? And the New York Jets have two. Now, here's an interesting stat as we tie football along with hockey. Who would have thought I'd be tying these two sports together? But I'm going to find a way to do it anyway. Let's talk about the Winnipeg Jets, setting all kinds of records for 15 game starts, whatever. They are 14-1. Their offense is ranked first. Their defense is ranked first, and their chance of getting into playoffs are 99.8%. On the other hand, the New York Jets, less Zach Wilson, okay, well, maybe it wasn't so bad after all, and with Aaron Rodgers, who are bad after all, are 3-7. Their offense is 26. Their defense is 10th, and their chance of making the playoffs are 9%. Now, here in the hockey world, the number 9 is Gordie Howe, but nobody wants to deal with the number 9 when you're dealing with, okay, the situation with the Jets. So, all right, Joe, proceed.
I was actually looking at the Winnipeg schedule and their start, and their schedule is kind of crazy. They have a bunch of road games. They've right now are in the middle of a 3-game road trip. They get 1 game at home, and then they go back on the road for like 6 in a row. So I'm curious to see where they end up after the next 10 games, because that's going to be very interesting to see. As far as the Jets, the bottom of the AFC from 6 and 7, or maybe 7 for the wild card, it's out there. The New York Jets, if Aaron Rodgers could actually figure out what to do with the offense, and somebody can figure out what to do with the defense. I don't know if it's Hassan Reddick, Sauce Gardner, the Archbishop of New York City. Somebody can figure out how to play defense for the Jets. Maybe they can win a couple of games. They have all the talent in the world. It's not a talent issue. If you want to say it's a coaching issue, they changed the head coach, so you're stuck with an interim. Both things are up in the air. Like I said, Winnipeg, we got to see the next 10 games. They got a bunch of road games, but they're a fun team to watch. And the New York Jets, if they could figure it out, they could be dangerous.
Well, when Robert Saleh went out that door and he ended up going to Green Bay to lend his expertise over to the Packers, boy, that really was bad stuff for the New York Jets. Okay, George, go ahead.
Well, Winnipeg's they're flying right now. They're off to a flying start, the Jets. And it started the first game of the year. They had to go into Edmonton with the defending Western Conference champion Oilers. And they came away. People might forget this, but they came away with a shutout, 6-0. They shut out the Oilers. The Winnipeg Jets, they were a really good team last year. They are even showing more of it this year. Here's another one. They come into Detroit. They win 6-2. Where do they go next? Columbus. They win that one 6-2. I mean, they are scoring a lot of goals, a lot of firepower on that Winnipeg team. And Kyle Connor with 11 goals so far, and he leads the way. But I'm telling you, this is definitely a team to watch. The Jets, the Winnipeg Jets. As far as the New York Jets go, I'm not as optimistic as JB is. I think this is just a disaster of a season with what's going on there with Aaron Rodgers and his team. It's going to be very, very difficult for them to rally and to try to make a run for the playoffs. They might have talent, but boy, they just can't put it all together. And I wasn't a big fan of them firing their head coach either. So I wish them the best of luck, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for the New York Jets. The other
Also,
Jets, yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, I was just going to say the other Jets in Winnipeg, they got a great chance. These Jets, the New Yorkers, I don't think do. That's all.
Well, we had a recent episode that these Jets are flying high on Fire Up Florida, so I was referring to the Winnipeg Jets. So it's
Yeah.
got an interesting response there on Fire Up Florida, and I'm joined on that show by Rod Peterson. All right, Candy, you have the last word on this Jets situation, since I know you have some thoughts about Aaron Rodgers as you usually do. I don't know if you're familiar as much with the Winnipeg Jets, who, by the way, before you say anything, I wish that they would get their original logos back from the original WHA now that the Phoenix or Arizona Coyotes are history. Maybe one of these days the NHL will be able to come to their senses to bring that whole Jets franchise and keep it where it needs to go once and for all now that the Coyotes, which were a dumpster fire from the beginning, are long gone. Go ahead, Candy.
That would be nice. Yeah.
Nikolai Ehlers from the Winnipeg Jets went back to the end of last season when he was asked about why the Winnipeg Jets have been historically good at the start of this season. The end of last year was a big wake-up call, he said. With the season that we had to then lose in the playoffs like we did was frustrating. I think we all knew we needed to change some things, and it wasn't players. It was our mentality. The way we go to work every single day, that has changed and that has paid off. To Eiler's point, Winnipeg ended last season with 110 points, second in the Central Division behind the Dallas Stars, 113th, and fourth in the NFL. However, they were wiped out of the Stanley Cup playoffs in 5 games, losing 4 in a row to the Colorado Avalanche in the Western Conference first round after winning Game 1. You forget that we were 4th in the league overall in the regular season. I think our commitment to consistency and showing up and grabbing the guy next to you and making sure they have their best tonight is just at another level this year. So they've upped their game because they know what they did last year wasn't enough. So they rallied as a team and are doing better. Now, we can talk all we want all day long about the New York Jets. It ain't changing a darn thing. Oh, let's grab this player and let's grab that player. You know, I'll admit they have had some injuries, but every team is facing that. And the good teams find ways to win. Let's face it, the Lions didn't play their best game on Sunday. They found a way to win. The Kansas City Chiefs, you can't tell me that was their best game. And yet at the end of the game, they found a way to win. The New York Jets, they're not finding any ways to win because they're not playing as a team. They're not. You look at what's different in Detroit and what's different in Kansas City. They have good coaches that all their players like and rally around. Obviously, firing a head coach mid-season, not everybody is rallying around that coach. And now, is it the coach's problem or is it some of the players' problems? I would beg to say that there's a lot of in the NFL. I would think it's a tough job. It's a win now job, so you have to win right now, and you have to get along with everybody. And in the NFL, you sign a player for so many years, or you trade for him and you get him for so many years. So now you've got to gel all of these high contracts, all of these players, and try and gel. And if they're not players that, how should I say this, aren't selfish, it's different. You know, a Jared Goff is not selfish. Tom Brady was not selfish. He knew that even though he wanted to be the highest paid, let's face it, everybody wants to be the highest paid. But he knew in order to get better players supporting cast around him, he needed to take less so that there was some more money for some others. Some people in this league are not doing that, and they're not going to find the success. So it It depends. If Aaron Rodgers just wants a lot of money and make his contract and not win more Super Bowls, then he's fine. But if you want to win the championship, you've got to surround yourself with a good cast.
Well, I'll go back to the stats again, in case you're just joining us. Number one, and we compare and contrast the two jets. Okay, we're not talking 747. We're talking different kinds of jets here. Okay, Winnipeg once again 14-1. Their offense is ranked first. Their defense is first. The playoffs 99.8%. Gosh, New York Jets 3-7. Offense 26, defense 10. Not playoffs 9%. Oh my goodness, that's unbelievable. All right, well, you know what? We are going to go to a station break. Candy, take it from there.
So late last year, the South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by your host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth, Morgan Roth. The foreword is written by George Eichhorn. It talks about Scott's 40 plus years in the industry and how the media has changed over those 40 years. Old school media versus new school media. Great book, great gift idea for the holidays. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Apple, and Google Books. There's a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. There's also a link on our website to our South Florida Tribune or Motor City Madmouth merchandise store, where you can get sweatshirts, sweatpants, t-shirts, you name it with our logo on it. Go check us out at our website. There is also a plethora of all kinds of great content, great writings by Scott and George and JB, and I've taken a picture or two on there. Go check out all of that. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, we talk football. Wednesday nights here on Sports Exchange, you never know what we're talking about. Thursday nights, we talk Fire Up Florida. We talk hockey. And then Fire Up, we talk about just about any other sport. Also, preceding the show on Wednesday nights on nofilter.net, Scott does a Motor City Madmouth show. George joins him, and so does Smokin' Jeremy B. On that network, you go and you find his show. You go to buy a ticket, even though we charge $0 for the ticket. You have to buy the ticket. The ticket is emailed to you, and then you can go click on the link from your email and join the show. If you want to advertise, you can call Scott 954-304-49141. If you want to be a guest on the show or have any show ideas, you can email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Scott, back to you.
All right. Well, Little Caesars Arena. Boy, I think about the pizza because I haven't had their pizza in a while. You know, it's good pizza, by the way, I should say. There was a movie called Back to the Past. Did you ever heard of it? Probably not. Everybody talks about Back to the Future. By the way, glad to have William Carafa in here. Somebody new. Good stuff. And anyways, here's the thing. Back to the Past is a movie, and you know who started it? A guy by the name of Erik Spoelstra, who pulled a Chris Webber in Detroit with Jalen Rose watching, called a timeout he didn't have. Detroit defeated the Miami Heat 123-121. My goodness, in the NBA Cup. Don't get me started with that. Oh, I swear. If I'm going to give Joe a parting shot, I may as well have mine. In fact, we're going to incorporate parting shots at the end because I have some I want to get off my chest. So LS, be prepared to have yours. And Candy and George, you can think of a couple on the fly. But anyways, let's talk about Erik Spoelstra calling the timeout that he didn't have. He owned the mistake. Of course, he's entitled to make a mistake once in a while. He has championship in his pocket. So what are your thoughts, Joe, about Erik Spoelstra pulling the Chris Webber routine in front of Jalen Rose with the timeout that he didn't have?
It happens. We all make mistakes. It's just a very poor one to make, especially by the head coach. It's one thing for a player who's in the heat of the moment actually on the court. You're the coach. It's your job to know the situation no matter what, because that's what you do. A player's got to play and, worry about where the ball is, positioning and all that. But it happens. I mean, that doesn't mean Spoelstra's not a great coach. He is. He just picked a bad time to make a mistake. And, the NBA Cup, great idea. But I don't know. It just doesn't excite me, the fact that these games count towards regular season games. If they only counted towards the tournament, I'd be all for it. because then you'd have teams that may play differently. But the fact that it's a regular season game and it counts towards the cup, to me, it kind of diminishes the whole point of it.
Yeah, well, let's go back to Weber. Okay, so you're giving Erik Spoelstra a mulligan on this one, then, aren't you?
I mean, it's a mistake and it should never happen. But
Okay.
you know, I give Weber a bigger mulligan than I do the head coach. The head coach, Spoelstra, that's what his only job is, to know situations. Weber has to make plays, so it's a lot. I could see it more from a player's perspective, having done both, having coached and played. I could see where a player would be more apt to make a boneheaded decision and calling a timeout you don't have. Where a coach, that's the only thing in the world you're supposed to know is what play you're calling and what the situation is, and that's part of the situation. But Spoelstra is a great coach, so a mistake, you're allowed to make a mistake every once in a while.
Okay, fair enough. All right, George, were you at that game last night?
No, I was not, but I sure wish I was. That was a great, exciting game. In fact, that's the first Pistons win of any NBA Cup. It's only been around 2 years now, but still. It was a phantom timeout, just a phantom timeout. And yeah, I can still remember that when it happened to Michigan and our friend Chris Webber. But I didn't expect it from a veteran like Erik Spoelstra. But I see what JB is saying. Everybody's entitled to a mistake, but I think that in the big scheme of things, it's not going to really matter much. I mean, I'm not a big fan either of this tournament, but the fact that Detroit was able to win a close game like that in overtime, meant a lot to, I know, the Pistons faithful. But yeah, it was a bonehead call by the head coach. And you're right, he should know about that. He's got other guys there too. My God, there's 3 or 4, 5, 6 assistants next to him. They should know the situation, what it's going to happen, and if you had a timeout left or not. But yeah, it was a big mistake. I'm sure Erik would like to live that one over again.
Well, amazingly enough, I'm watching Erik read, from the Miami telecast, and he was really he couldn't have believed what happened. All right, Candy, go ahead.
Okay, the mistake was yes, he made a mistake, Erik Spoelstra, but let's be honest. It was overtime, and the mistake was made before that play. The mistake was Miami did not block out. They allowed the Pistons to score. They had a 2-point lead with 1.8 seconds to go. And they let a clear game-tying alley-oop dunk to Jalen Durant. After they rushed to remove a 6th player from the floor. So they didn't know what they were doing the play before. When you have the game is on the line, you had the game won. 1.8 seconds. All you had to do was defend the ball, and you didn't do it. And so Detroit tied it, and then coach went to take a timeout, which he didn't have. Yes, that was his mistake, but the mistake was the play before that, in my opinion, as we were watching that. I'm like, how do you let a clear alley-oop dunk with 1.8 seconds to tie it? So then Detroit tied it. Spoelstra kind of ran out in disbelief, ran out, called the timeout, realized then he didn't have the timeout to call. Detroit was awarded a technical foul, and that was the game. But really, we think about it, but there were how many other baskets that weren't made before that point, right. So, and there's 82 games in the season. If Spoelstra costs you one, I'm sure there's way more coaches out there that are going to cost other teams way more than that one game.
Let me say, I like Erik Spoelstra. I really do. I'm glad he's going to be the next U.S. Olympic coach. I really do. This guy here, to me, is one of the best coaches that I've ever seen, especially in this era. I don't know where he'll stack up amongst the all-time great, but his career, he's had a great career thus far. The sky's the limit, and he has a championship in his pocket. Let's put this comment up by William Carafa. He is still young with respect. I agree it was a mistake. He's a good coach. I'm back in there. William, hopefully, if you want to see more of our shows, please subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. We'd love to have your comments, especially when they're put up there in excellent taste. William, great addition to the show tonight. We appreciate your participation. So, and I've known Erik Reed for a long time. Eric's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet too. The guy has won numerous awards at the National Sports Media Association, and for good reason. I have his number. I owe him a phone call pretty soon, so we'll be reaching. But I'm not going to beat up on Erik Spoelstra. No way. This guy is he learned from Pat Riley, and he's done an unbelievable job. And the culture that the Miami Heat have down in Miami, it's absolutely unbelievable. This is a winning organization if I have ever seen one. They really have. They retire numbers. They win championships. They have great administration with Riley, Alonzo Mourning, Dwayne Wade. The list goes on and on. It's been a privilege for me to go to the American Airlines Arena when it was called that to see the Pistons and the Miami Heat in some very important games. So I have nothing but respect for that organization from top to bottom. All right, well, we'll stay on the NBA theme for just a moment because I don't think it'll be that long. And then I have some pretty interesting topics coming up near the end of the show. But only two teams in the Eastern Conference have a winning record: the Cleveland Cavaliers 12-0, and then you have the Boston Celtics 9-2. Indiana is at 5-5 at the 500 mark. So, Candy, we'll start off with you on this one. What are your thoughts about the fact? I know it's hard for her to strike first because she's the most unbelievable researcher, but this doesn't take a lot of research. All you have are 3 records, okay? So let's talk about the only 2 teams in the Eastern Conference that are any good.
I don't know that I would say are any good. I think there are teams that just haven't gelled yet, or there are some that have a lot of injuries. I can tell you, like the Bucks, Chris Middleton is out. Giannis has been injured. Damian Lillard has been not shooting really well, and then he was out with concussion protocol. So I think it just makes, I think it's surprising that they're not doing as well, especially the Eastern Conference at this point. But again, there's 82 games in the season, and I think they'll start to get it together. Sometimes teams just start out slow. They didn't gel together, they didn't play together a lot in preseason. Whatever it might be, I think you'll find they'll start rebounding pretty quickly.
Okay, we'll go over to George Eichhorn. Obviously, the Cavaliers made a change the coaching position. J.B. Bickerstaff no more. I think was it Kenny Atkinson? Kenny Atkinson done a really good job there. So George, the Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics so far are the class of the East. Some thoughts about that.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, then you got Orlando at 7-6. So basically, you got 3 teams in the East, but in the West, you have 10 teams. Count them, 10 of them that are over 500. The balance of power certainly looks like it's in the West, but I do err to the side of caution. And like Candy said, it's a long season. You just can't guess that it's going to maintain this kind of imbalance, if you will, between the East and the West. The Knicks are only at 500, but in Detroit, they're only 2 below 500. After the disastrous last season, but again, it's early. The Bucks have to get better than this. They're too strong a team. So yeah, I think it's going to change, but it is very, very interesting to see it so far this season. Cleveland is just unbelievable. Now they're playing through their eyeballs right now, sort of like the Winnipeg Jets we talked about earlier. Cavaliers, my goodness, 12-0 right now. But it is a long season, and I do expect some teams to obviously shine a little bit better in the East.
Joe?
If I would have told you on November the 13th that the Winnipeg Jets and the Cleveland Cavaliers would have combined for 1 loss, and it would be the Winnipeg Jets that had the loss, I think you would think I was crazy. But they're both playing unbelievable. Cleveland, I don't even understand how they're 12-0. The Knicks with the trade for Karl Anthony Towns, that totally changed their whole plan. So, it's going to take a little time for them to gel. Like George said, Detroit's got 5 wins already. That's impressive. They were horrible for how many years? They're almost at 500. Just having 5 wins at the middle of November, that's great for them. The Bucks will get better. They're just, they're dealing with a lot of injuries. They have talent. The NBA, half the teams make the playoffs. They just got to get in. But it's over half now with the play-in stuff. So they just got to get healthy and do what they got to do. But the West overall is the better conference. They have better teams. It's been that way for a little bit. I mean, there's some good teams in the East, but generally, you always have about double the amount of teams that are good in the West compared to the East. And looking at the standings in the West, I mean, no shock. Phoenix, Oklahoma City, and Golden State, all 9-2. I'm not shocked by that. They're all, the top teams that we think about. And when you look at the East, Cleveland 12-0, it's like, huh? And then you got Boston, which makes sense, and then nobody else really doing anything. So it's really not surprising the way everything's shaken out. I think when it's all said and done, the Knicks will be a really good. They'll fight for one of the top 3 positions. I think Milwaukee will get back into it. I'd love to see Detroit make a run for the playoffs. That would be fun, just to get some new blood in there and space it around. But other than that, I mean, it's interesting just to see who's where.
Well, the Pistons have lost some close games too. Otherwise, their record would be a little bit better than they have. So watch out for the Pistons. J.B. Bickerstaff is a good hire. And I also have Luke Walton on that staff. We also have Ralph Williams. Penn Sports are in the house. They're going to be on tomorrow night, by the way, on Candy's Country Club show, Fire Up. I love calling it the Country Club, the way she runs it. Great show. If you haven't seen that show on Thursday night at 9, what are you waiting for? Candy runs an unbelievable, laid-back, relaxing atmosphere. I've never seen a person put her stamp on a show the way Candy is. A multi-talented woman. She comes on this show. She has a country club show. She does a website. She's a jack of all trades. But man, I'll tell you, you need to buy a ticket for Fire Up. Really? Seriously? Because she is really, 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 and seriously, seriously, seriously good. Okay. But that said, I don't normally talk along these lines. Where is Joshua Dorr and B. Lowe's for this one? Because this is one of the few topics that these guys might actually get into. And if you wonder what I mean, I'll tell you exactly what I mean. When I saw this, I had to put it in on the agenda today. Syracuse football coach Fran Brown, get this, doesn't shower after losses. He says, I don't deserve soap. I guess he assumes losing stinks. So, Joe, he doesn't shower after losses and doesn't use soap. Where are you at, Joshua? You picked the wrong time to follow up. But, I'll give him a pass because I'll give him a pass. He's probably putting his kid Asher to bed, but he'll probably catch it on the review. Go ahead, Joe.
That's just bad for business. You have to be around other people. Shower. It's good for you. Wash the stink off so you can get better. If you're not doing it for yourself, do it for the other 80, 90 people in the locker room and the reporters that have to talk to you.
I told you, Joe, that when I was telling you I had some original topics, I did. I was being a gunslinger, and I meant that I go to a lot of different ways to do it. I don't normally put these things up there, but this was just intriguing. It's lighthearted. It really is. I mean, I can only imagine. I remember watching Syracuse get stomped by USF 45-0. I don't remember who the coach was at that time, but if you didn't have any soap there, my goodness, I can understand that logic there. But really, seriously, I don't deserve soap. George, I don't know. Can you top JB Ellis's comeback on this?
I can't top him. This is crazy, man. It's crazy. Yeah, that's not sanitary either. He would stink bad, probably. Yeah, not as bad as a player, but still, the coach. It's kind of funny and amusing when you hear something like that. But man, oh man, he's got to make sure that he's got a clean bill of health and has to definitely
clean bill of health. What's that got to do with this? Come on, George. I understand you usually know what I know. It has to be a joke. I'm not trying to think, but where clean bill of health has to do with losses. Really? Seriously? Of course, I don't know if this is stage where he does this to rattle me up to get all this business here. That's unbelievable, man.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens to the Orange as the Orange progress this year, but they're 2-0 right now. It's a crazy story. That's all I'll say.
That's okay, Highcorn. I'd like to give you a hard time. So
I know.
But when you see somebody where I don't deserve soap, it doesn't shower after losses. My goodness, I've seen people going out there and taking losses, but this takes it to a different extreme. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I haven't had superstitious habits in my day, because when I used to sell windows, I used to put garlic in my sock if I ended up going ahead and selling, and nobody was looking to smell my tennis shoes and my garlic in my sock. Okay, but this soap business is a little interesting. All right, Candy. I don't know if you can research this one, but go ahead. Tell me what you come up with here.
His quote, I don't deserve soap. Now, wait a minute. The rest of the people around you don't deserve to smell you if you don't use soap and shower. Now, come on. I mean, if you think about it, like, I would think if you had a superstition like, oh, I got to do the same thing because before every game, because if I don't, if I lose, then I got to. Now wait a minute, but you're not winning. You don't do it when you lose. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. But my question is, is he married? And if he is, what does his wife say about this? I mean, come on, really?
See, I got her saying really now. It's addicting. You forgot seriously, by the way.
Seriously, really, really, seriously, come
Real,
on.
see, the reallys and the seriously are contagious in this show. Great stuff.
My one last thing would be, as a coach, you're supposed to be setting an example. What kind of example are you setting if you're saying that when we lose, you don't deserve soap, so you're not going to shower? So what does that mean? All of the rest of your team that you're coaching is going to start saying, oh, well, when we lose, we don't listen to you or do this or do that. Like, that just sets the wrong example. I'm sorry. As a head coach, you're supposed to be setting a good example, and I don't think this is a good example. There could be other things you could say you don't deserve or you shouldn't do after a loss. This is not one of them, because this doesn't punish you. This punishes everybody else around you.
Fair enough. Okay, well, I'm going to go to the New Orleans Saints. It isn't quite as drastic as this, but it is interesting as we stay on the theme of all these interesting, weird items that I'm seeing all over the web that make their way here onto the Sports Exchange. New Orleans Saints interim coach Darren Rizzi on how his Sunday began. Obviously, it's one thing to have butterflies, but he says, I clogged the toilet. The Saints ended up winning 20-17. All right, Joe, this guy clogs the toilet, but at least we don't have to worry about the shower. You know, butterflies is one thing, but clogging a toilet? Oh, my goodness.
I love the fact that his first post-game press conference, this is what he said, and he showed he had life. He obviously hopes he gets the job full-time. The team responded, they won. Listen, it is pretty funny. And he sometimes when a coach says something at a press conference, it's to set the tone. Obviously the Saints won, but there are probably a lot of tough questions that could have been asked because they're still in a bad position. But he changed the tone of the room by getting everyone to laugh and relax. So he totally diffused the situation. Smarter than you think.
Okay. All right, George.
Well, yeah, he did change the situation. And you know what? The Saints, have not had anything near a good season. Of course, we know that. And the fact of the matter is they did win a game that most people didn't think they would win. They beat Atlanta 20-17. But yeah, I mean, this is a guy that's obviously trying to rescue that team and trying to make sure they turn things around down in New Orleans. And he's having a little bit of fun with it too. But yeah, he's got a big job there. But that was an interesting thing when I heard about that, Scott. That was pretty good. I'm glad you brought it up tonight.
Well, I'll say this much. Whether he gets a job or not, I think the guy that will likely get it if he's interviewed is Aaron Glenn of the Lions, because he came from the Saints to the Lions. He would be the front runner, in my opinion, to get that job with the Saints. But you know what? I will say this, Darren, you certainly, I'm sure the media loves you over in the Big Easy for coming up with this. A little bit of humor. Dennis Allen didn't get the job done. You bring an interim guy. I remember when Wayne Font got the interim tag, how we begged William Clay Ford to get the job and ended up had a pretty good run over in Detroit. So, hey, you know what, Darren? More power to you. You're a special teams coach. So Coach John Bonamega would certainly be rooting for you as well. So I wish him well anyways. Candy?
Yeah, what do you say about this? I mean, he uses the head coach's locker room in his first day on the job. He quipped he thought it was a sign he was going to have a crappy day. I mean, but then look what they did. They won. Like they, you know, I I don't know if everyone is superstitious or not, but hey, what he did, and now they switched it and they changed their rhetoric and they actually won and they responded. It was kind of funny because we were listening on was it Monday, and they were talking about this on, I think it was it Get Up, or was it Scott? Was it Get Up, or was it the other show that we were watching? They were
I
talking
don't
about it.
remember.
One of the coaches says that he actually does. I think it was Get Up, or because I think they were talking, and he said that he doesn't deserve the head coach's locker room yet because he's only an interim. And then they were talking about how the head coach's locker room is so old because this stadium has been built how long ago, hasn't had upgrades, they haven't done a lot to it. Whatever you want to say, it lighthearted. It's not something you would have ever heard or thought you would have heard in a first interim head coach's press conference. But yet, look at how we're all talking about it. We all laughed about it, lighten the mood. Maybe it lightened the mood for him. Like the pressure was on, all of a sudden now he's an interim head coach. He's trying to vie for the job. Whatever it takes. Hey, it worked.
Well, you go from one extreme to another. You got Fran Brown all the way to Darren Rizzi, and what do you have? Some pretty interesting conversations nonetheless. Okay, Blows, you missed some pretty good stuff toward the end of the show, so I encourage you to definitely go ahead and watch it on the replay. William Caralfa, it's been great having you on the show. We really enjoy it. We hope to see you back at a later time. I don't know if I'm a rocket scientist, but Blows, it's good to have you back. I encourage you and the rest of them to go ahead and to look at topics number 5 and 6, and those will be up your alley, but don't bore me with a FaceTime call over it. All right. Well, I have a feel good story. Then we're going to go to parting shots. We're making really good on the time, but this is really a good one. The San Francisco 49ers wide receiver Ricky Pearsall was shot 7 weeks ago, and on Sunday caught his first NFL touchdown pass in a 23-20 win over Tampa Bay on the road. What a great feel good story. A guy that got shot and then he finds his way to the end zone, Joe Ellis.
Listen, I mean, he's very lucky. His life could have ended. I hope he's appreciative of the fact that he's still alive, and I hope he loves playing football. And good for him to get the touchdown. I hope he has a great career. Thankfully, he's still here to experience it, because a lot of people don't get that opportunity. They get shot, and unfortunately, they pass away. And just his fortune that he's okay, and good for him.
George?
Yeah, it is quite a remarkable story. The young man has obviously overcome the trauma of being shot, and obviously all the rehab that had to go on too after he was unfortunately shot. It's sad to see, in the sense of, we know that there's violence in many cities. Almost all cities have some form of violence or crime. But boy, oh boy, when you see a guy like this battle back and get himself back into game condition, game shape, and then be able to return back to the roster, that was a very touching scene. And I applaud him, as well as his training and medical staff that helped him through the way. Yeah.
By the way, William, you're very, very welcome. Go ahead, Candy.
Anyone that is hurt due to violence such as that, I applaud them for working that much harder to get back from being injured and getting back to your craft and doing well. I don't know what else to say. I mean, kudos to the medical staff that treated him. Kudos to the training staff then that worked with him to rehab him and get him back in shape to be back playing. And kudos for him for working that hard and to have that desire. We just talked earlier about how many people change careers and stuff like that. Kudos to him for, taking the high road and working hard and getting back as quickly as he did.
Well, when you're an executive producer, sometimes you like to know where to position certain topics. And we start off with Gino Oriema, and then we end up with Ricky Pearsall. I think that's a good bookend to describe what we've accomplished here at the Sports Exchange. You talk about, because Gino Oriema is really completely right about it, and of course Ricky Pearsall. To me, I'm just glad to see him back on the field, and the 49ers really do need him. They have a lot of work to get back into playoff contention. They're just lucky that they happen to be in a division which is closely contested. Yeah, we do have time for parting shots, so go ahead, Joe Ellis, lead off.
Well, it's good to see St. John's ranked in men's college basketball. They were a perennial top 3 school at one point in most Division I wins. They fallen all the way back to 9th, behind schools that obviously are blue bloods, Kansas, Kentucky, and I forget who else is on the list, but really good schools. But it's good to see him ranked early in the year. Rick Pitino's done a great job bringing in some great talent there. The big week coming up. They play his son, New Mexico, on Saturday. Then they got Baylor, who's ranked, and then Georgia next Sunday. So the next 3 games will really see how good they really are. Excited to see. It's good to have big basketball back in the Big Apple. Forget about the Knicks and Nets. We got St. John's. We don't need them.
I know you did a tremendous job last year covering the Big East tournament. We'll look for more of your coverage later on this year in the Big East tournament. The only stadium that I really haven't been to, I'd like to get to it. So I've been to a lot of stadiums, but I do have a desire to get to Madison Square Garden at some point. And I tell you what, I'm really intrigued about the possibility one day of working with you over at the Big East tournament for sure, over at Madison Square Garden. All right, George, go ahead.
Well, obviously it's award season now in Major League Baseball, and hats off to 3 guys from the same division up for Manager of the Year, and those being, of course, A.J. Hinch of Detroit, and then Kansas City and Cleveland's managers. So I think it's a sign that you talk about a little bit of a power shift. Well, we all knew that the Yankees obviously had a fantastic year, but the Central, the AL Central has really become very, very fiercely competitive. It's good to see good managers being nominated for these awards, and best of luck. I don't think AJ is going to win it, but it is quite a interesting situation where you got 3 guys from the same division up for AL Manager of the Year award. As they say, may the best guy win.
Candy.
Kudos to the LPGA Pro-Am here in Florida, who had Caitlin Clark come and play today. She brought her golf game and a big buzz to the tour when the basketball star played in the Pro-Am that attracted a bigger crowd than the tournament often gets for its tournament rounds. She played 9 holes with Nelly Korda, the number 1 player in women's golf, who is competing for the first time in nearly 2 months after a minor neck injury. During a brief interview, she was asked if she's picked up any tips from Korda, and she's like, I've watched her and she's amazing, but golf is hard. So kudos to taking a big name, in a different sport in women's, and putting her to attract attention to another women's sport. It's great that they did that. It's great that they allowed the gallery packed behind the ropes to watch Clark. She signed some autographs for hundreds of fans when the Pro-Am was over. So kudos to the LPGA for having her, and kudos for her for acknowledging the fans and signing autographs, because that's only going to draw attention to not only the golf tournament, but to women's basketball as well.
Okay. My parting shot is this. David Stern must be turning over in his grave right now. Why? Because the NBA Cup is back. Oh, really? Seriously? Thanks, Adam Silver, for destroying the game that I built. Hello, load management. Oh, I hate it. Oh, I really do. Darvin Ham was the head coach of the LA Lakers last year, and now he's with the Milwaukee Bucks. Maybe he can help them out. The LA Lakers have 1 NBA Cup, and the Celtics don't have any. That's okay. And they have a banner to show for it. My goodness, the only banner that matters is the fact that the Celtics have more championship banners than the Lakers do, 18-17. So give me this NBA Cup, really. The Lakers even have a banner up there to celebrate this pathetic idea because we're too busy worried about load management, getting guys to play 78 to 80 games a year. We really are. And in my opinion, it's a joke. The NBA Cup to me is a gimmick. Why don't you get back to playing the right way? And then your sport to me, well, that will give me a reason to go out there and watch it. It is a joke. Every time I see the NBA Cup, I just gag. And it gives me every reason why. And I hate to say this because I covered the NBA for a lot of years, and it was a great league to cover. George and I worked together during the Bad Boys era. I wouldn't trade anything in my lifetime for it. I really wouldn't. But I probably have a piece of the Palace floor in my house. And I tell you one thing, every time I look back at it, I'm so proud of the fact that George and I did a lot of things. But the NBA Cup, okay, really? Seriously? Darvin Ham was a championship winner for the midway part. What did he get? And what did he get? Can JJ Redick? Good luck. Go, please. Get rid of it. I hate it. All right. Tell me how you really feel, Scott. I don't know. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to let Candy take over.
So the South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book last year, late. Lessons from the Microphone, tuning into the enduring wisdom of visionary leaders. It is written by Scott, your host, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. The foreword was written by George Eichhorn. Awesome book. Get your copy today. It's a great gift idea. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Apple, and Google Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you also find a link to our merchandise store where you can get sweatshirts, hats, t-shirts. We are proud to announce that the audiobook is in the works. We will tell you more when it becomes closer to time for us to publish it, but it will be available audio. If you like to listen to podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, you can find us. If you see the red subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner, click it, like us, share us, tell all your friends. Monday nights, 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Tuesday nights, Inside the Pigskin. Wednesday nights is Sports Exchange, and Thursday nights is Fire Up. Those two shows, you never know what we're going to be talking about. Fire Up Florida is on Thursday nights. It talks about hockey. And then preceding this on nofilter.net was Motor City Mad Mouse Show. Go check it out. It was Scott, George, and Smoking Jeremy B talking pretty much most of the show about the Detroit Lions, and then a little bit of hockey. But you have to go to nofilter.net. Purchase a ticket. The ticket is free. You get an email and then go watch the show. If you want to be a sponsor, a show, or advertise, call Scott 954-304-4941. If you'd like to be a guest or you have topic ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. I think that's pretty much it. George, how can people find you?
Well, I'll just piggyback on what you just stated, Candy. I can be found on the South Florida Tribune and under the Motor City Tribune. The column that I write, usually one a week or so. At the end of those columns, you'll see a link to look at and purchase my book, which is Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. Scott and I, oh my goodness, the years we had together on this. Yeah, a lot of years in Detroit. And it's a good read. Also, you could follow me on Facebook and on Yahoo, gicorn@yahoo.com, and also on X or Twitter at SandGSports99. And looking forward to, again, being on the Monday night show and the fun we have on Wednesdays. Although I have a conflict next Wednesday, I know you guys will do a great job. So thanks for tuning in tonight, and thanks for letting me be part of this.
Hey, William Carofa, just to let you know, okay, that if you want more of my takes, feel free to go ahead and purchase Lessons from the Microphone. Just Google it, and then they'll send you the link to Amazon. You can get it that way. I have a lot of good stuff that perhaps you might be very interested in doing. So Lessons from the Microphone, Google it, and they'll give you a link to Amazon. You can get it there. Sorry to interrupt Joe, but I just want to make sure that William has a copy of the book if he has a chance to get it, and then he'll be able to see a lot of what we're doing. And by the way, I will be working on the second book probably beginning January. Go ahead, Joe.
JB underscore the program on X. SidelineSportsNet.com is the website. Candy built it. All the Sideline Sports people write, cover. All our shows are up there. A lot of articles coming in. I know I wrote a few. James wrote a few. Will's put a couple up there. We're trying to expand our coverage. Every Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. Sideline Sports, and here Wednesdays at 8 p.m. What is it? 9 p.m. Eastern.
9 p.m. Eastern. You got it right, Joe.
Yeah. Time zones. Too many time zones.
Be glad you're not on the West Coast.
Yeah.
You're only an hour away. Okay.
All right, but I'm good.
Oh, that's okay. Hey, the guy works hard. He runs his own network. What can I tell you? He's been a very valuable partner to what we've done. And I look forward to continue working with Joe and on different projects. We talk about one of the better people in the industry. JBL is certainly one of them. And it's been a lot of fun working with him. So, Candy, anything else you want to add?
No, the only other thing is Tuesday nights. You can find me on Chicks and Salsa, 7:30. Otherwise, tomorrow night, approximately 9 p.m. is Fire Up. Got to check it out to see what we're going to be talking about tomorrow night, because you never know.
And prior to that show, we have Fire Up Florida. I'll be joined by my co-host Rod Peterson, who happens to be in Vancouver, British Columbia. Why? He's covering the Grey Cup for his own show, and he's been a prominent part of the CFL for many years. And we do a hockey show every Thursday around 8:00 p.m. Eastern time. Great show tonight. Furthermore, I enjoyed the participation in the chat room. William Carafa is our designated unofficial co-host tonight because he's been such an outstanding contributor all night. So, William Carafa, I can't pat you on the back because you're somewhere out in cyberspace, but you can do it for me, and you know where my mind is at anyways. Great stuff. We appreciate your outstanding participation and hope to see you on a future show. So, meanwhile, on behalf of Candy, I blame George Eichhorn. JBL, my name is Scott Morgan, we're out the Motor City Man. I'll thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange. We will see you next Wednesday night around 9:00 p.m. Eastern time. Everybody, have yourself a great week, and we'll see you next time. Good night, everybody.